Hi, welcome to Holistic Health on Board, and my name is Dr. Didoy Lubaton. Today, I'd like to share to you about the art of problem solving. Do we really need to do that? Yes, we do. I remember this seafarer who walked to me in the clinic, and he said to me, Doc, I have many pendings in my PME. Can you help me to be fit to work? And I said, let's go through it. Let's have a conversation. Tell me, what is your problem? And he said to me, Doc, I don't have a problem. It is your clinic who has the problem. You always make me go through clearances. You always make me do this and that. And I said, okay, sir, I understand it must be a difficult situation, a difficult process. But what we're here for is to help you. Could you help me help you? And he said yes. And then we discussed not just his findings, but the lifestyle behind his findings, his medical history, his family history, his lifestyle history, his diet history. And at the end of our conversation, he finally said, Doc, thank you for this conversation. I have a problem. And he said to me, I will start taking charge of my problem moving forward. And that seafarer went on a different person, a much healthier and health empowered person. And you know why? Because he took the problem and he wants to solve the problem, and he asked for help for the problem. And he goes on solving his problem, not just on that moment, but for sure, moving forward. What am I trying to tell you? I'm showing to you that first of all, we all have problems. It's part of life, especially on board. When things are difficult, when things are not your usual lifestyle, you are on board a ship. There's a lot of work. There could be distance and disconnections from family and friends. You don't get to do what you really want to do. There are many things. There are many factors that affect your life on board. And let's just say that it is part of the job. But sometimes it also becomes problematic. So yes, let's normalize that problems come and go. It is one of the constant things in life. What we want to become is to be better problem solvers. Can we do that? And I encourage you today that today we can become better problem solvers. So I'd like to present to you a three-step process, just three-step process, just a framework, how we could help ourselves, how we could be able to become better in problem solving. I'm talking about physical health, can also be mental health, could be relational, and many other things. It's a three-step process. But first of all, I also want to say that every problem is a potential for growth. Can you say that with me? Every problem is a potential for growth. Problems will remain problems if we just made it our problem. if it stays as a problem. But if you harvest and use the problem as a raw material for a potential for learning, for a potential for growth, then it becomes very useful for you. I always say this, sometimes we win, sometimes we learn. Losing is not a problem as long as we use the loss, and when we lose, we get the learning. So sometimes we win, sometimes we learn. So three-step process so we could be able to do our problems better. Let me say it better. Three-step process so we can carry and solve our problems better. The first one is we need to be able to learn how to recognize. Remember my story with the seafarer? First of all, he did not recognize he had a problem, and he started looking at his environment, even looking at us as the ones who's causing his problem. And when we fail to recognize the problem, And then we cannot solve the problem because 50% of the problem is done once you recognize that you have a problem and you recognize what is my problem and what is causing my problem. You know, I as a holistic doctor, I always say you heal from the root causes, not just the symptoms. Like treating the roots, getting to the depth of why is this happening, what is causing my problem, than just the surface level of the problem. So recognize it. I always remember that what you can name, you can tame. What you can name, you can tame. What you can feel, you can heal. So we gotta be able to learn how to recognize. For example, in mental health, first you want to recognize behaviors. It's all about behaviors. Your mental health is visibly shown in how you behave, in your behavior. So for example, when we see mental health situations on board, and when we dig deeper into the history, we'll see that the seafarer who was currently anxious and having anxiety attacks or depressed had at least 2 weeks, some cases like this, 2 weeks or a few days or more than 2 weeks already, who's been having change of behaviors. You recognize the change of behaviors. For example, a person who used to be jolly and happy on board appears to be withdrawn, appears to be less talkative than usual. Appetite has changed. It's either too much or too little. Some particular seafarers who we see on board happens to be, very, very much connected with his crew, eats with them in the mess hall, but the change of behavior is he locks himself up inside his cabin and stays there most of the time, doesn't communicate, or there is a change of behavior. There's an increased smoking than usual, or he appears to be looking out into the horizon more often than usual. When there is a change of behavior, we need to recognize that. Let us recognize that, because recognition of the problem helps us solve the problem, definitely. So recognize what you can name, you can tame. That's the first step. We need to have good eyes, good ears. We need to be sensing and recognizing what are our problems, what is causing our problem. And I'm spending a lot of time with recognizing, because it's really the baseline and first step. We cannot have good treatment of an illness if we don't have a very good diagnosis. So recognize. The first step is recognize. The second step of the framework of solving your problems is to resolve. Yes, let's be problem solvers than problem whiners. Let's look into asking ourselves, what is the solution to my situation? Being a player instead of a victim. Resolve. Problems are essential components of our growth. And if we focus our attention and energy to the solution, the better it will be. Because we see a lot of people whose focus and attention is on the dwelling on the problem and feeling the problem instead of solving the problem. So, for example, in mental health, resolution is, go and exercise. There are studies that show that you become 2 to 3 days more active than usual. You will have at least 17-20% increase in well-being and less depressed. There are a lot of evidence that shows to you that if you have healthier food, if you take care of your microbiome, which is, you eat a variety of food and less ultra processed food, less canned good, less processed food, the better your moods will be. So shift your diet to healthier foods as much as you can. And yes, frozen food is still healthy. And if there's an opportunity to have more vegetables on board and there are fruits, grab it instead of just the carbohydrates and the sweets that are on board. So grab more healthier, closer to nature, the better. So diet and nutrition solves your mental health situation. Exercise helps you boost your dopamine level, makes you feel much better and active, and the sense of meaning and fulfillment is so much better also. Especially one of the best ways for resolution is don't do it alone. We are better together. I always recommend a buddy system on board as much as possible. You don't do life on board. Nobody cries alone. Nobody carries the load alone. A burden shared is a burden lightened. Which brings me to my third step. Recognize, resolve, and thirdly is to refer. You are not meant to do it alone. Refer means reach out and seek a helping hand. We want to have help-seeking behavior. And back to my story with the seafarer. He did not leave the clinic. He really wanted to talk to me. First, I thought he was just about making complaints about us, about his situation. But at the end of the day, and to the bottom line, I recognized him that he was asking for help. And that is, I ended the conversation with him and commended him and say, thank you for asking for help. Thank you for reaching out, because we too are reaching out with you. We have the same goal, to have healthy lives on board, to have healthier seafarers, to have longer careers, to have less incidents as much as possible, no repatriations on board. And we are in the same tribe. And it's very comforting and it's very empowering that we are all in this together. We have different stakeholders, from the seafarers to the ship managers, crew managers, even ship owners. We all want the same thing. We all want to have meaningful, fruitful jobs and lives, giving us purpose and more than just profit. It's the people that matters the most, especially in shipping and in the maritime industry. So my dear friend, if you're watching this, you matter. And if you need any help, you talk to someone. If you feel that you are overwhelmed, diffuse that overwhelming feeling with someone that you trust. Or if and when, you call us, your doctors, your medical providers. We have telemedicine, we have psychological counseling if you want to. And I encourage you that you want to have a health-seeking behavior on board. And it's one of the best ways you refer when you cannot do it alone, when you are too much and you actually don't know what to do. I run to my mentors. I run to my superiors. I also run to my friends. So it depends. I also have to carry things on my personal and professional manner, but I will always have that helpline when I really need it. And it is such a meaningful existence when you know that you can run to people when you need to. And most especially when other people know that they can also run to you, especially on certain situations when they need our help. So, in summary, problem solving, 3-step framework. Recognize. Recognize meaning what you can name, you can tame. What you can feel, you can heal. Recognize. Second step, resolve. Treat the root causes, not just the symptoms. And empower yourself to be a problem solver, not a problem whiner. You are a player, not a victim. And thirdly, refer. Ask for help as needed. And be the help also when people ask. So I hope that this short video is helpful for you. Please take care of yourself while you are on board, and let's take care of each other. I will see you again in our next video. This is again Dr. Diday Lubaton for Holistic Health on Board. Bye.